I'm not entirely satisfied with it, but when I come to the last chapter of his book, which is called, Taylor's book, which is entitled Conversions. Actually, a funny story, I read an interview with Taylor where the interviewer says, up till the last chapter we thought you were a great philosopher, you were making great points, but the last chapter really ruined the book for us. The last chapter is where Taylor comes clean, where he gives the full account of his own religious belief. And it's interesting that in this chapter he spends a lot of time discussing Ivan Illich. Ivan Illich, who's a very radical Catholic, who has in fact was at one point a priest, but who has distanced himself from the Catholic Church because of his serious and severe criticism of Christendom. Christendom is condemned by Illich as an oppressive force, as a force that has really ruined Christianity and was very damaging to Christianity. But of course, Illich, like some others that I will mention, who are not Catholics, who are Methodists, Lutherans, Illich places great emphasis on the parable of the Good Samaritan. And what is Illich's view of the parable of the Good Samaritan? Very shortly, very briefly, Illich's view is that the Good Samaritan does not help out the suffering individual he encounters because of some kind of a moral ought. The story of the Good Samaritan is a story of absolute unconditional love. And this is the message of Christianity, according to Illich, that Christianity, on the one hand, urges the believer to get beyond mere human flourishing, the good life, but also to get beyond the law. That following the law, following codes strictly, slavishly, is extremely oppressive and restrictive. So in a sense, Illich is a revolutionary thinker. For Illich, the revolutionary message of Christianity is this absolute, unfounded love of the other. I'm going to come back to this as I try to answer the very last question at the end of my little abstract. But before I do that, one of the criticisms in interviews that Dennett and the others had is that well these fancy schmancy theologians, they're very smart guys, but they talk to us one way, but when they talk to their flocks, they talk another way. So the criticism of these guys really have a double language. Of course, they recognize that, in a sense, we don't really have the language to describe and discuss what they call numinous, exalted experiences, that even they admit and regretted that unfortunately atheists don't really have an adequate language to talk about these very profound experiences when we encounter the totally unknown, the totally stranger. But the message for Illich, and it's very important that, as he describes Illich's position, Taylor says that I owe a lot to him, which leads me at least to believe that his position is very, very close, that he also is a radical Christian who is opposed, perhaps as opposed to Orthodox Christianity as are the new atheists. But he believes that there is a message in Christianity, and he's not the first one. Hegel also talked about different religions, and Hegel taught, as to Taylor, Illich, and other Christians, that Christianity is the highest form of religion precisely because it is a Christianity of love, Christianity of absolute love. You don't love someone for the qualities they have, for the good or bad properties they have. There is something that goes beyond that. Agape. And the revolutionary aspect of this message, if we just stay at this crucial fact of agape or absolute love, the revolutionary aspect, and that's where I find myself somewhat wanting and deficient, is that it invites us, it calls us to love the other even if the other is our enemy. To love the other even if, according to rational descriptions, this is a bad person or this is not a good person. And that to me is an extremely hard thing to do, and I certainly am unable to do. And if I have any respect for Christians, it's not because they are able to do it all the time, but at least their Christianity might remind them that there is that kind of an absolute love, which might help them to eradicate hatred from their souls, even if it's a hatred of something awful and ugly. Well, there is a French philosopher, André Comte-Sponville, who says something very interesting. He says, love is not a moral virtue. All the moral virtues are virtues that somehow oblige us to do things a certain way. And he says, if we were powerful enough to love, and I think when he says if we were powerful enough to love, he must mean that if we were capable of this absolute love, agape in its Taylorian Christian version, then we wouldn't need morality. And he says, we need morality, we need the law, we need codes precisely because we are too weak to love. It's a wonderful formulation, I think. Now this is part of my answer to the question I raised. What can I learn? What can I learn from the dialogue with Christians? And I think that this dialogue troubles me. Certainly my inability to have the kind of love that Christian love demands troubles me. And I think it also troubles Christians, because I think Christians, if they're honest enough, they don't have this kind of love. That there are moments when they are incapable of giving this kind of love. Well, in their terminology, that's a form of abandonment. But they have at least a hope. They have at least a hope that such a love is possible. And of course that hope is their belief in the infinite love of God. And to me it's a very helpful reality if we go back to reality as Hegel and Taylor understands it, as something that is required by our best account of who we are, the best account of the way in which we live our experience. Now, just as a footnote to all this,